Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Once Upon a Time in PatORG, the podcast where we will be speaking to the All Stars voted out of this PatORG season. I'm your host for today, Nico, and with me today we have the third juror of this season. It's Kris. How's it going, Kris?
I'm doing great. How are y'all doing?
Yes, doing well. It's always fun to have these opportunities to chat, especially on a one-on-one. Um, so, obviously, as I said, this is an All Stars season. You are one of the All Stars on the cast. Obviously, you were in part of the most recent season. So, what were your pre-season expectations? Did you have much familiarity with anyone beyond your season? And who might you have expected to see, whether it be on your season or otherwise?
For my season, I expected to see Gabe, DeLuca, Floyd, and possibly Justin. I thought they probably played the best. Tom was also someone I thought would have been in here as well, but he was on the admin cast. And
Right.
those are the I didn't expect to see Talia. I didn't think she played exactly the best in season 24. She was kind of a floater, but I think she's played a lot better in this season. As far as my expectations, I didn't know anything about any other seasons before. I figured there was gonna be some winners and probably some heroes and villains and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't do much research before the season. I just figured that going in, people would have opinions about me, and honestly, I didn't think anyone would want to work with me. And I was probably going to be an early boot, in my opinion.
That's fair enough. Like you mentioned, you thought people might know some things about you, and obviously being in the most recent season, I guess that's probably the highest likelihood of that happening. Um, Speaking of your previous season, do you want to give us like a bit of a quick rundown of what exactly went down for you then, and how it got you to where you are to come on this
So
season?
I never thought about my how I would do at Survivor. I always thought I would do good strategically, like understand about numbers and um, how like idle plays and basically anything dealing with game theory. I didn't think I would have a good social game or be able to really flip anyone to me and whatnot. So my real strategy going in was like find someone that had a large social game and stick as close to them as possible and try to be an asset to them with my strategic game if they were lacking in the strategy portion of it. So that's basically what happened with me and DeLuca on the first season. I tried to stick as close with her as possible, and she became a huge asset. She flipped Floyd to us and Justin on the first swap. She gathered Joey and Joey to us. And then when we went to merge and stuff, we were able to keep it together with Rider Dies. So I think I did a lot better in the first season because of the fact that I had Rider Dies going into merge. That I found out that they were actually Rider Dies. And then this season, I didn't have any Rider Dies going into merge. So I feel like that was probably a little bit better of what I did in my original game.
Fair enough. So obviously that's one of the ways that your game kind of differed in a sense. Was there anything other else that kind of springs to mind of kind of massive differences compared to your original game, or maybe even some similarities that you had this time?
I feel like I had a very strong pre-merge, but I feel like if the game Survivor was basically the pre-merge portion, I think I'd do a lot better.
Right.
I think the transition into merge might be something I need to think about more if I go into a different game. As far as the parallels, I feel like I was doing pretty good with B. B was kind of like the DeLuca from my season. Unfortunately, she just didn't listen as much as DeLuca did. Like for DeLuca didn't think she had a good strategic game in season 24. She used to talk really bad about her strategic game. So it was kind of like a very good merging. While B didn't care about stuff like that, and I didn't feel very listened to when I was talking to B. I would tell her that I was with someone, that someone was close to me, like Shay or Lily, and she'd be like, "Well, they need to go because I don't talk to them." And it didn't like going into merge. I was kind of getting shaky about that whole thing, and Unfortunately, it played out the way it did. But it definitely, I think the biggest difference there is I didn't have that merged duo feeling that I did with DeLuca in the first season.
That's fair enough. You mentioned the merge portion being maybe a bit more difficult for you versus the pre-merge. What is it about that transition that you think kind of makes things different in the way that you play?
The way that I mean, I already knew from Talia when I went to the signs with Talia, and she told me that my name, that the other tribe was already like talking about me as a threat. I don't think I was able to manage my threat level at all going into the merge. I was basically everyone's shield. I don't think I was like that in the first season. I felt like a lot of people were ignoring me, which was good for my game, and I felt like my ride or dies were like Joey was very well hidden within the cast. He was really close to Tom and Cody. And me, I mean, everyone had me and DeLuca clocked, but DeLuca had so many people willing to work with her that we had a large amount of options for numbers and stuff. And then we had Floyd, who was a secret mole to the other side and spilling all of their info. So I felt like we had a large amount of weapons going into the merge in season 24, and this one just people people didn't trust me and knew that I like whatever happened, whether I'm a good player or not. People had built up this brand name of me being a threat, and they were basically getting ready to take me out at some point. So I was the entire merge. I was walking on eggshells, and it felt like as long as if I didn't do anything, I like in the F12 vote, I didn't do anything during that entire vote. I just shut up and like just chilled with Gabe. But in the like, if I tried to do anything, try to better my position, try to talk to people, try to forge anything, people would tell each other that stuff. They'd compare notes on me, and people just didn't want me moving around trying to make things happen. So unfortunately, that's how it went. That's how it felt, and yeah, it was a much harder merge.
You mentioned not feeling like people weren't trusting you as much. Is there anything you, from your point of view, you put that down to, or just kind of something that you think just ended up happening this season?
I think with the first season, there's a lot of people just didn't really know what they were doing compared to season 24, and they didn't compare notes as much. So I would tell one person one thing, another person, and not I wouldn't tell another person something, and they would compare notes of who do I trust and who not. And I don't think that a lot of that was happening in season 24. And this season, people just compared notes way more and understood what my game was, which is basically trying to control the flow of information. So yeah, it was much harder with a bunch of people that knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the difficulties with certain players is like gameplay styles. If there's certain things known about you, it can be easier to counter those in a sense. So you mentioned having spoken with Talia at the Hollywood sign. What was your impression of the whole sort of Hollywood sign angle of this season? How did you feel about it?
I really like that. I like the ability to hide information. Like me and Talia, whatever me and Talia talked about there, we were able to compare notes. And like the when I was winning like every single tribal, literally we would just like wait for the new information from whoever went to signs to try and have something to talk about because we never went to tribal. I really like that. I really like that idea of going back and forth between all these information sources to try and see if you can be in the know. It's like kind of like an investigation or something or deduction. That was definitely my favorite part of the season was the interaction of the Hollywood sign for sure.
And I suppose that kind of, in a sense, for you was probably a bigger portion of it because you didn't have that sort of tribal element as much. Because as you mentioned, a lot of your pre-jury game was you winning challenges. So although that's kind of what it was like, do you want to give us a bit of a recap of your pre-jury game, as much as it didn't involve tribal?
Yeah, the pre-jury game basically on the OG tribe. I saw Talia's name on my list and Deluca on another tribe, and I thought I was cooked because I know that Talia didn't exactly like me that much, and I was really surprised because B, Andrew, Steven, and Talia immediately approached me, and they all said they wanted to work with me. So I was really actually struck and surprised by that because I didn't think anyone would want to work for me. I thought people would have opinions, so I was able to kind of like bond with people, and I felt like I was kind of in the center of the tribe at that time. Jess and Clara were the only two that really didn't want to talk to me, and Justin talked to me a lot, but he was kind of messy and spilled a lot of info, so I kind of propped him up as the first target if we did go to tribal. Then I just kind of discovered that he was like he like really talked to me a lot, so I felt like he might have been an asset. I found the idol. I did after so one day, tribal or Talia actually spilled the first clues to me. I'm guessing to I didn't think she found them. I thought Steven had given it to her because I know that she was also talking to Steven and Andrew a lot. But she helped me get the idol first. I was able to guess it out once I started googling tourism attractions of have you entered. That was the only thing I had. And then Andrew caught me at the idol. So I just decided that I'd rather me tell people than Andrew tell people because there's no reason for Andrew to hold on to that info. And I felt that that would be a better way to gain trust with people. And then we won 4 in a row. We went to the first swap, and B immediately flipped over Peter and Henry to us and got us into alliances with those two. And I know they were really close, and then me and Justin got a lot closer during that time, and I was able to actually talk to DeLuca and see how she was doing. She was kind of cagey with me and felt like she kind of wanted to do her own thing, but the problem is when you win best duo on our season stuff, people kind of force you into that role, and they didn't really give her much of a chance to not be a duo with me. So I feel like that was a big mistake for a lot of people to work up DeLuca because I don't think she really wanted to work for me as much, but she kind of just got forced into that path to keep her own game safe. So during the second swap, when we also won 4 in a row, we got into 2 alliances with the MGM and the Paramount. And I got really close to Paramount. Henry and Shay and Lily I talked to a lot. And I know Peter stayed close to DeLuca and B. And I was talking to Henry and Shay, and they would tell me that they kind of wanted Peter out. And B, when we would VC every other night, and for like an hour each time, and she was starting to target Shay and Lily because they didn't talk to her. And I started throwing Steven under the bus to pretty much everyone so that if we did go to tribal, Steven would be out and I wouldn't have to lose any of the people that we were all close with because I knew that B would go after Shay or Lily. So that's when I started. I heard rumors that Steven and Shay were very close in a duo. They would obviously deny it, but so I started painting that to B, and I think that probably moved the target to Steven if we had gone. And then Justin got really close to Peter and me, and that was pretty much it for the second swap. And then the real fireworks started when we did the first swap, and then the second swap is when things actually started happening. Which we won the first one and we lost Justin. That was a really big blow, I think, to both B and me and Peter, because he felt kind of like the unifying glue between a lot of his people. And when that happened, we were like, okay, I think we need to start throwing challenges. Even though we had a perfect record of 9 in a row, I was like, we need to start losing because if we like go, we would lose Peter next because Justin was close to Peter and Peter went to the signs and Peter told DeLuca a bunch of stuff about what was going on. He was like freaking out. This is what DeLuca told me. And we were like, we need to save Peter. And who we have like maybe 2 or 3 tribals left. So who are we losing? We had Gabe and Sarah and then possibly Lily. Those were the ones we talked to. And then I didn't throw the bomb challenge. That was just Gabe, I think, freaking out and misreading the clues. I know he said he had some language issues, but it is what it was. So we went to our first tribal and we're obviously taking out Sarah because Sarah unified with the quad that she had built up of Andrew, EJ, Stanley, and Talia. Then I thought she would be pretty powerful going into the merge. So Sarah was the target there. And then that's when I went to the signs of Talia, and me and Talia hadn't talked since the OG tribe, and I tried to reach out to her. Like, I really did feel a lot more closer to her in this season. I wanted to work with her. I really liked Talia, and Talia felt like she had a lot of more connections. She was kind of like her social game was doing much better this time, and I wanted to get closer to social players so that to help flip allies if we had gone to merge. So I think Talia received my request very warmly. I threw all my alliances to her, and she threw her to mine. And then when I went back to the other alliance or the other tribe, I had a decision to make, because if we'd gone to tribal, we would lose probably Stanley or Peter, and I figured that Peter and Stanley were going to be very potential good allies for us because they know that they're on the bottom of the tribe on the other side. So I was basically at the point where it was either between Lily or Gabe, because if I didn't want to lose anyone else between Henry, DeLuca, Nelson, or B. So when B had that chat, we had a VC when I returned, and she said she was leaning towards Lily instead of Gabe for the target, and I was like, I'm really close to Lily. Lily was my number 2 in trust rankings. We talked. I really liked her. She once said she wanted to work for me, and I believed her. And I was like, I don't want to lose Gabe. I want to work with Talia. I want to bring Gabe and Talia together so we can work together. I believe, I really trusted Talia. So if we went to tribal, the only person left was B. I know B was a very large threat. I knew she was kind of. It felt like she didn't really want to work for me. She was kind of forced to work for me because she was targeting the people that I had told her I was close with, and it just didn't. At that point, it just didn't set well with me. And then we were told that during this tribal, both teams would try, but only one of them would actually be counted. So we had to prepare for a tribal. And that's when the point I was like, okay, I think we need to cut B. So the plan was to create a quad of Henry and Lily. We would have the votes. I wasn't going to tell Gabe. And I told Lily the truth that B was targeting her. And then she slipped it to Nelson, unfortunately, and told someone out of the side of the quad. And then we had the big B blow up, which honestly was a bad move for her. She should have kept it to herself to betray me eventually, or started working like Henry and pulling in DeLuca and Gabe that I was going to betray and stuff. But she went directly to me, and so then all that happened, and that was the end of pre-merge, which pretty much tanked my game. I think if I had rolled into merge with B, she would have been a bigger threat than I was. I think her and Shay were probably the 2 biggest threats going into merge before me, and I unfortunately knocked one of them out before merge.
Well, that was, yeah, quite the pre-merge when you think of it like that. Thank you for that very comprehensive breakdown. Obviously, as a result, you do make merge. So obviously, in light of what you'd said about having previously 2 people you considered ahead of yourself threat-wise, and kind of losing one of those, I guess, shields, if you want to call it that. What was your plan at this point now that you hit the merge to progress? Who did you see
So
yourself wanting to, yeah, go
yeah,
with or
so
not go with? Go for it.
going into merge, I knew that I probably had DeLuca. Nelson, I don't think trusted me, but I think he was forced to work with me because the idols were a threat. Me, DeLuca, and Nelson had 3. So the idols, I figured as long as they were in play, I was pretty sure Nelson was kind of forced to work with us. I figured Talia was on my side, and she was. She did feed me info of what Andrew and other people were telling her. So she would give me warnings. She wasn't exactly working with me, but she was definitely feeding me info as far as what was happening. Um, the first order of business, as soon as we got to merge, I wanted to flip Peter and Stanley to us to make sure that they're with us. After the whole B thing, I knew I lost Lily, and I thought Henry was with me because Henry was throwing Steven and Shay under the bus to me hard when we were on the other swap and making it seem like he was my friend. So I thought that I had the numbers with that with me, DeLuca, Peter, Stanley. That's 4. Nelson, Talia is 6, and I thought Gabe was with us too for 7. And then, I mean, Andrew seemed like he was kind of like Andrew seems like he's everywhere. So I felt pretty good going into merge. Henry told me that him and Lily were gonna vote Shay, so I thought I had 9 going into it. And then, yeah, they really convinced me. Like they got me pretty good. I was so paranoid going into merge, thinking that it was too easy. I'm like this. It wasn't this easy on my season. In my season, it was chaos. Like everyone was talking to everyone. There was no lines in the sand. There was leaks everywhere about who's doing what. Like everyone's names were being thrown out. This one seemed too easy. Like it was an easy Shay vote. I'm like, I don't think this is that easy. And then even Shay started talking to me like jury management. Like she was like, "How's your girlfriend? How are you doing? How's your daughters?" And I'm like, I don't feel good about this, but everyone was very good. Like all the players knew what they were doing. No one was leaking much. And then about 20 minutes into the F13 vote, that's when Nelson told me that he had flipped. They have the numbers. You need to play your idol. And after the votes, that's when Talia told me. After the votes were locked, so I knew that I was playing my idol at that point. And it felt bad because I really thought that I didn't think that Talia, Gabe, and Nelson were coming back to me. I didn't think that they would want to vote me after this or vote with me after this. They gave me it felt like they were with them and they were flushing the idol and stuff. But I was really confident I had numbers, and then I didn't have numbers. Um, so yeah, that was my ideal path, was to work with Peter Stanley's, Luca Nelson, Talia, and Gabe. But it seemed like everything was much more liquid than it had been in season 24 when I had Ride or Dies. I didn't have Ride or Dies here. So it was really interesting dealing with that. So then the F12 vote, it was basically, I didn't know what was going on. I felt like I was out of the know. I felt like I was in the bottom tribe. So I just kind of like shut up and let people work. Talia immediately approached me and said she doesn't want to vote me. And Andrew and team, their 5 votes, immediately tried to blitzkrieg me and make it seem like everyone was against me, if that makes sense. But like I think they made the same mistake that I did, where it's overconfidence, and they didn't really suss out the vote. And I spent most of my time like talking to Henry, trying to make him feel good that I was leaving, and not being able to suss out that there was a vote. And I don't think they found out until about 5 hours for the vote, and that's when EJ tried to get votes for Talia, which gave Talia a reason to vote him instead of just betraying Andrew. And then that's when his fate was sealed for that. For the F11 vote, um, it's like it was 7-4, but Talia and Gabe like stopped talking to me. Like during the F12 vote, they had been very warm to me, telling me like giving me information of who was talking to them and stuff like that. This one they shut up. They didn't tell me nothing. And Talia said, I think you're not the vote here, but you might need to win immunity for F10, which was code to me that the vote was going to be someone I didn't like. So I assumed that they were going for DeLuca. And the whole time I was trying to suss out what was going on while not trying to make anyone suspicious and stuff like that. And I think at the F11 vote, I made 2 big mistakes. The first one was Lily found out she was the vote, and she started talking to everyone. And I let slip that Peter had told me that Gabe had told him that he wanted Lily out. So Lily immediately threw me under the bus and said I was throwing Gabe under the bus. Because Peter at the beginning, right when the immunity had been done, Peter went around during that quiet time when no one was talking. There was about an hour when no one was talking to anyone. So he went to DeLuca and got a VC with her and was looking for votes to get me out. So I knew Peter was trying to betray me, but he kind of put it on ice because he didn't think he had the votes to do that. And I knew that I didn't have the votes to get Peter out. I know Talia and Gabe would not be down for a Peter vote. I know that if I would talk to Henry or Andrew about a Peter vote, they would immediately throw me on the bus. So we were like, okay, me and DeLuca were talking. We're like, okay, let's put it off to F10 when we probably have better numbers to take out Peter. And then when Lily threw Gabe name me under the bus to Gabe, that's when Peter felt galvanized to come back after me and issue that. I did send a message to DeLuca and Nelson, let him know, hey, I'm going to drop DeLuca's name to Andrew to see if I can find out if the vote is DeLuca, so that we can know if she needs a player idle. And then Andrew told Henry that, and then Henry told Peter that, and then Peter was like, we need to get him out. All right. And that's when he just forced the vote. Stanley went with Peter, Gabe went with Peter, and then Talia's like, I can't do anything. And it was funny because Andrew actually wanted to work with me. Like, he was giving me all the other side's info, but there was nothing I can just do about that. If I had made it through that, I think I would have leaned hard into Andrew and Talia being able to like shift the tribe dynamics so that Peter wasn't in the center of my side, and we'd be able to betray Peter and take him out at that point. So I think if I just didn't say that to Lily, I think I would have been okay. And I think going forward, I might have actually been okay. But I know that my life probably wasn't going to live past F7. There's two people that were just waiting for a reason to take me out. So I think that's pretty much how the path forward would have been with if I had survived.
Did you have two people in particular, if it was a final three, that you thought they're the people I most want to sit next to if I can? Like if I've
I
got
wanted to
complete
sit
control.
100%. I wanted to sit next to DeLuca and Talia. I think those two, if I was sitting next to them, I think I would have been okay.
Okay, as far as winning, or you would have been happy with that decision? What do you mean by that?
I think that too many people see me and DeLuca as a duo, even though we really weren't this season. I think it doesn't really matter. Like, people just get mad at people for keeping me around, and the same thing for Talia. In fact, I really think that the jurors would be so mad that I had made it to FTC. They probably would have just spite voted me. Honestly, that's how I feel about FTC. Like, if someone like me, if a huge, like, even if people don't think I'm a good player, I had a brand name of being a threat, and my name was on everyone's lip. And if I can survive all those votes to FTC, go through F10 tribals to make it, I think people just spite vote me, honestly. So I think DeLuca and Talia were my two that I would have been very, very happy to take to the end.
That's really interesting to hear. Obviously, it's uh, not always everyone's typical strategy as far as getting a spite vote at the end, but it shows what potential options people have with what they've got, and kind of maybe playing to your outs if that's what you think is your best way forward. Um, you obviously mentioned about the B situation, kind of losing a shield going into the merge, and also obviously the things you wish you didn't do regarding saying things to Lily and whatnot in your boot this round. But are there any other things that kind of come to mind as far as either the regrets and things that you could have changed now, or even just proud moments about your time in this season?
I mean, I'm really proud for 9 in a row, even though some of it really wasn't um, like I didn't have agency on it. Like, we got second place on there was this float challenge that all three teams DNF'd on
Mm.
during the OG tribe, and the only reason we didn't go to tribal during that time was because Jaden didn't finish that float puzzle, and Jaden was voted out at that tribal because of that. But I'm still proud of it. 9 in a row. That was pretty cool. I didn't cast a single vote until the merge, and I mean, I'm always gonna be proud of that. So I'm really happy with my social game this round. I feel like a lot of people liked me a lot more, um, whether they're lying or not. But I really feel like I got along with much of the cast this time, and I didn't have just people insanely hating me and refusing to work with anyone on my side just because they were attached to my name, if that makes sense. Like Danny and Gabe and like Tom, they just absolutely refused. Or Talia, they all refused to work with DeLuca. They didn't want to work with Joey. They didn't work with Floyd or any of this stuff. They're just like anyone associated with my name. They just like painted such a hate brush on. It was horrible. And then like at FTC, like they just like would just talk about me and why were you working with Kris? And like I was the person that the entire season was talked about. That was all the questions at FTC. So I'm really hoping that that's not like I'm really hoping the FTC is not like that this time. I feel like me going early at 11 will hopefully allow people to build up a different game and name for themselves, that all the FTC isn't just about me this time. I am really proud of my social game this time. I feel like I was always in the know of what was going on. I don't feel like I was really surprised by a lot besides the F13 vote. That was really the only surprising thing. Everything else, I kind of knew what was happening. So I'm really proud of that part. As far as regret, I just think if I ever play Survivor again, I think I have to find a way to be low key, and I don't know how to be low key. I like my game is sharing information to trust, to get people to trust me, and bonding with people and stuff, and being in the know of everything. And if you play low key, I don't think you can really do that, and I don't know if I want to do that. So I think if I ever go to a different season, I'll try to find out a way to not be high key.
I think it's nice to know when someone kind of knows what their game is as well. Like, so if you're identifying that you share information to gain trust and stuff, I think that can be a really powerful tool for kind of sticking the path and kind of navigating your way if you've got a mindset of how you want to, yeah, get through the game. So, again, thank you very much for those very like full answers. I appreciate getting to know kind of all the nitty gritty. You mentioned obviously about Final Tribal Council, and how you might want things to be potentially different this season. Well, you are again one of the jurors that will ultimately cast a vote to decide who will be the winner. Um, what kind of factors do you tend to look for when considering who you would potentially want to vote for in a winner?
I'm looking for a complete player. I feel like a mixture of strategic and social game. I guess the perfect winner that I would like as an archetype would probably be Clara from season 23. I felt like her strategic and social game were pretty damn good. So, and she was good at challenges as well. I'm looking for a very well around player. I want someone that had agency in the game, was able to move votes, was able to their I want their will to be done on the game. Basically, I want to see their influence on the game. I want to be able to see that they were able to do what they wanted to do, basically, and hopefully their tribal speeches are going to reflect that. I want to see their complete game, basically.
Yeah, that's very fair enough. So we do have, I believe, 10 people left at this stage. Would you be willing to give us a ranking of the people you're kind of most considering voting for at this stage if they were to make it there, as far as most likely to vote for versus least likely?
So there, as of right now, I think the most complete player currently in the game, from my viewpoint, would probably be Andrew. I think he has a very good social and strategic game, and a lot of people are against him, and he has this way of making you feel very comfortable talking to him. DeLuca is a very good social gamer. I think like out of everyone that I met so far, I think B probably had a better social game than DeLuca, but DeLuca's is very strong. And then I didn't really see it much during the pre-merge, but her merge social game is insane. Like I think she's very well positioned at this point. I think Gabe is doing very well too. I think he's very well positioned and is a much more low key player. He has a very he. I thought Gabe was my biggest threat in season 24. I thought he had the ability. Well, I mean, he obviously took me out, but I thought Gabe was probably the most complete player at season 24, and I really like playing him. I'm really glad to have got to know him a lot better in this season, to really bond with him and talk. So I feel like those three are probably doing the best in my opinion. Nelson is also doing great. Still has an idol too. Um, I don't think his social game is as good as the other two, but he has a better strategic game than a lot of other players. He's able to suss that out. Henry, I think, is not long for the world. He leaked a lot of Andrew's stuff to everyone, and he was very passive aggressive and pretentious to a few players that turned them off to him. So I don't think he's going to make it. I think Peter's big move, Itis, to try and get me out early was a mistake. I think it upset someone like Talia and Gabe to get me out at that point, and probably gonna lose a lot of trust with Peter. I think Stanley and Lily don't really have a lot of agency in the game, unfortunately. I do love Lily. She was very, very sweet. I really liked getting to know her and sending her emojis for days on end. She's really nice. And I do hope that she does well, but I just don't think she has a lot of agency. Stanley as well. I never talked to Steven. Like, Steven never talked to me either. And I put him in the same category as like Henry. I don't think he has. I just don't think people are really talking to him as much. I've almost never heard anyone talk about him that was on my side. I don't think he has a lot of connections to the side with Peter, DeLuca, and Nelson. So I think he's just kind of like Andrew's number at this point. So, well, we'll see how the game goes and what the other juries go. But that's basically how I see it. The rest of the players.
Did you say
Did
mention Talia?
did I mention Talia?
Yeah.
All right, so Talia, I think she has the most connections in the game. I don't think she has the strategy to be able to outmaneuver other players and stuff. I feel like she goes before Gabe, if that makes sense.
In terms of the
I
boot order or in terms of your ranking?
In terms of boot order,
Okay.
like I think that if they ever come for Gabe and Talia, I think Talia goes instead of Gabe. I think Gabe has a much higher social game. I think Talia has a good social game too. I just think that the person she's associating with have better strategic parts. So I think Talia is going to be. I don't think she's going to make it if she sticks with Gabe. If she tries to maneuver with Andrew to another side to make another power sphere or whatever, she might have a chance, but I'm not sure she'll be able to do that. I don't think she's just around enough for this. She's like almost never around.
Sure. Well, thank you for those very, again, like full thoughts. It's good to hear a blow by blow of all of those plays. Do you think you can manage a 1 to 10 sort of ranking? Do you think you can give us the top to bottom, or is that a bit tricky?
So yeah, like Andrew would be number one, I think, at this point. DeLuca number two. Um, Nelson would be number three, and Gabe number four. I think Talia does better than Steven, and then Steven. So 5 and 6. Henry would be number 7. Who am I missing? I'm missing
We've
someone.
got Peter, Stanley, and
Peter.
Lily left.
So I put Peter below Nelson, and below Gabe. I think Peter does better than Talia,
Okay.
but I don't think he does as good as Gabe. So Peter would number be 5, 6 would be Talia, then 7 Steven.
Okay.
Henry at 8, Lily 9, and then Stanley 10.
Okay. Well, thank you for going through that. It's always good to get an idea of where jurors are at and obviously see how things progress from this point onward. Um, any final thoughts at this stage? We've gone through things quite comprehensively, and I really appreciate that. But anything else that you feel like would be good to touch on at this stage?
Oh, I just want to tell y'all thanks for having me. Thanks, Pat, for inviting me to your PatORG. I really, really enjoyed playing Survivor. It is 10 times, 100 times more intense than I ever thought that I would play. I'm sure the real thing is way more intense. I think this is probably the closest I'll ever get to being able to ever play Survivor. I really enjoyed playing. It consumed my life, and I hope y'all enjoy the rest of the season.
Oh, thanks so much, Kris. We really appreciate you giving me your time, especially obviously being on the road, if I'm right. Are you traveling at the moment?
Yeah, well, I'm about to go to Houston for Labor Day weekend, so.
Well, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We don't get a long weekend here, so I'm sending jealousy vibes your way. Uh, but yeah, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, this has been Once Upon a Time in PatORG, and we will catch you for the next one. Bye, everyone.
See y'all later.